Hi, in this video, we are going to talk about creating a pay grid for you. It's not as hard as you think. I've got a tool you can use to do it, and you can access this tool when you join my 123 HR community on the school platform, and that link should be somewhere in the description of this video. If you can't pay a good wage, you shouldn't hire yet unless you took, my advice to hire someone who will uh, generate revenue for you. So I spoke about this in previous videos, a salesperson or someone who's physically taking over, running the till, so then you can go build your business as opposed to working in your business. But you can see here on the side, this is the wage and pay grid tool I created some years ago, and I keep updating it. So at this point, you should already know your minimum wage for your area. And you can see this is the minimum wage for the area, this section here. And you should also know the local living wage for your area, and that's here, right? You should already know what it is. Your minimum wage, you should list it someplace and record it and the websites to where it's going, right? So then it automatically puts that number in here from the other sheet. So it's very helpful. Alberta average living wage. So I've taken all these numbers. These are the current numbers from 2025. I've taken all of these and put them on this chart, and then I've come up with an average for Alberta. Now, your state, your country, your region, you're going to have to go searching for this local living wage. Just search local living wage, your city, your province, your state, or whatever, right? And you should be able to start finding that out. But if you're in Alberta, you can use these three different. You can use northern, the total province altogether, northern Alberta, central Alberta, and southern Alberta. So you can kind of refine it a little bit. Unless you're in Edmonton, then you can just choose the Edmonton number. Oh, sorry, that's a little bit over. I didn't notice. But anyway, that's where these numbers are coming from that are auto-filling these two spots. And hopefully you did some research into your industry, or you're an expert, or you've been doing this for a long time, so you know what the industry wage is, or you did that little research and for the position. So say if you're hiring convenience store clerk, and you could have done a search again on Google and just say, average wage for convenience store clerk, Edmonton, right? And you should be able to get some data, and you kind of collect it and group it together, and based on your feeling and what you're finding, you come up with a number, right? In this case, the sample number I just put in is 17. If you've watched my other videos, you know I'm a very big fan of making sure you're paying at least the living wage in your area. Sometimes your industry standard wage can be lower than their local living wage. So that makes it very hard. That means there's probably a lot of unemployed people in your area if people are paying $17 an hour, but the local living wage is almost $23 an hour. This is Canadian money, by the way. It makes it tough. You gotta make a judgment call. But if you want someone to stay long term at your organization, pay them at least a living wage. You just need one more thing to make this pay grid work. That's the average inflation rate for the last 5 years. I go to this inflation rate website here. This is a pretty good site for. They have this great chart for It shows the inflation rate of each year, and it also kind of predicts what it's going to be. So you get the inflation rate for each of the last 5 years. So you can see on this chart, I've updated 2025 here, and it says here update each January. So I have the last 5 years inflation rate. And of course, we know in 2022, just as we were starting to come out of the pandemic, we had a pretty big inflation rate that year, 6.8, right? So, but this chart will average the 5 years, and that's what you're going to be using to create your pay grid. This takes the question out of it. How much do I increase the pay grid and things like that, right? Well, this helps because now you've got data on what's going on in the world. The big thing this helps you create is cost of living pay increase each year. So this 3.68 has now become your cost of living increase. Sometimes they call it COLA, COL. Now it's automatically embedded in the chart here for the calculations to create this chart. You can see in this chart, we have this year, next year, and we basically have 5 years worth of data here, or 5 years worth of predictions based on real data. So to understand this chart, as you go down on this chart for each year, these are your merit pay increases. Starting level 1, $22.97, it's the minimum wage in the area. So I'm going to at least pay $22.97 for any of my starting employees this year. That is for your really green, really entry-level employee, right? You want to start them at this lower wage, so then you have the ability to give them merit pay increases. And the next thing I'm going to tell you, but right, so level 2, maybe you bump them up to level 2 after the 90-day probation. And then maybe one time in the year, if they're really good employees and they're proving themselves to be hard workers, then you start considering a merit increase. If they are employees, your backbone employees, they're not rock stars, but they're doing their job, you need them, right? You're not giving them, they're not shining, so you're not really giving a merit pay increase. But that's where the next part comes in, right? If you keep an employee at your company or your organization year after year, they should at least receive that cost of living pay increase, right? They're not rock stars, like I said, but they're there. You're still leaning on them. They're still a part of the organization. If you appreciate them and they're doing their job good, okay, then you should still give some sort of appreciation as long as they stay in your organization. So let's say you hired an employee at $22.97. After their probation, you bumped them up to $24.66, and they kind of just became a regular employee. Okay, the next year, on their anniversary date, or January 1st, if you feel like, you bump them up to $25.57. This is a cost of living change. So from $24.66 to $25.57 is the 3.68% increase. When you give a merit increase on this chart, merit increases are double the yearly inflation awarded by job performance and supervisor recommendations, right? So this is a double, so they're actually getting 7.3% increase from 22 to 24. So this is a big increase. It really is. So when you're doing the merit pay increases, make sure they really, really deserve it. Let's say they earned it after their 90 days, and the following year, now instead of getting double inflation, they're only getting one average inflation. So they're only getting a 3.6% increase this year. And as the years go, you could see that even if they don't become a rock star, within 5 years, they're at $28, $28.50 an hour. And that's okay, because if they're good employees and they're doing the job, then keep them around. Show your appreciation. Something. I have been in jobs where I didn't get a pay increase unless I had negotiated it into my initial contract. And what a fool, right? So if you want to be a good employer, always give the cost of living pay increase. And if you calculate it here on this chart, it makes it easy, makes it simple. Now, this gives you the pay scale for your job ad because it is in this red outline. So when you advertise or create your job ad, you will use so you'll tell people on the job ad they can earn between $22.97 and $30.51 per hour. You might want to switch that over to salary and just show a yearly range if you want. But in this case, I'm kind of thinking convenience store clerk, right? So you would say per hour. So you would say $22.97 to $30.51, and that's your pay range. So they know exactly what they're getting into. So they expect, if they have no experience, they'll probably be getting at the $22.97. And that might be actually a pretty good wage. So compared to other convenience stores that might be only paying $15 an hour, the minimum wage in your area, but you're paying $22.97. So you should be able to get some quality candidates applying for this role. And someone who's got 10 plus years experience as a convenience store clerk, I mean, they're gonna try to negotiate up to your $30.51. But if they negotiate up to $30.51 and you really want them, they don't get any more merit pay increases. That's it. That's the top of your budget. So next year, all they'll get is the cost of living increase each year. So after 5 years, they can get up to $35.25, but that's theoretical, right? It allows you to budget. So when someone is in here, you should be budgeting for this $30.51 no matter where you hire, at what level you hire someone. In your budget, you say, new convenience store clerk, they're making $30.51 a year. This is the max they can make, and this is the max I need to budget for this next year, right? Until a cost of living increase comes in. So you budget there. You budget high, but this person who's got 10 years experience, maybe they only negotiate to $26.47 per hour, right? So it allows you to have some cushion on your budget, but you can afford whatever price is in there because you budgeted high. And you're not hiring anyone unless you can look at a budget like this and say, yes, I can afford to pay $30.51 an hour for this person. That's my top end. That's the end of the pay grid. It allows you to see that if you can't confidently say that you can afford the top end of your pay grid, then you shouldn't be hiring yet. You need to find a way to increase revenue on your own or whatever, or your existing staff members, trying to get them, trained up better or whatever to try to increase that. But if you can't afford another employee at the high end, you shouldn't be hiring anyone hoping you'll be able to get them at the low end, right? That's the plan, but it's not guaranteed. When the perfect candidate comes along and they're like, I'll work for you for $30.51, right? If you see that rock star candidate, you might hire them at $30.51. So you want to be prepared to do that. Remember, hiring for higher hourly wages can be scary. You still have the 3-month, 90-day probation here in Alberta to let them go, no questions asked if they're not doing the job. So there is added security in that. Right. And this chart also lets you budget for the next 5 years, because you have that high end 5 years out. You know that in 5 years, you're going to have to be able to afford $35.25 per hour. So you can say, over the next few years, I've got to be able to increase revenue in the organization by 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, like 12, 13%, right? You need to know, you make sure that you can increase revenue to cover that. But it's really cool because it lets you see what you should budget. I just love this. And I give this to my clients that I work with personally. You can, like I mentioned before, you can access this if you join my 123 HR community on School. I just wanted to say one more thing. Remember that when you get into benefits and perks, they are in addition to what this pay is. This is what you are paying them. And from this, all their regular deductions, taxes, and things come out of, right? So, but the but benefits and any perks you have, they're going to be extra on this. So, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Okay, bye.